Watch how the Commons erupts as Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride launches a blistering attack on Rachel Reeves, warning that Britain faces a fresh cost of living squeeze as tensions in the Middle East threaten energy prices and household budgets. Will the government's economic plan withstand another global crisis? Before we continue, hit like and subscribe to Britain Daily for more explosive political coverage. Let's watch this explosive clip.
Welcome to the statement, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rachel Reeves.
With permission, Mr. Speaker, I'll make a statement about the government's preparedness and economic response to the conflict in the Middle East. Let me begin by paying tribute to our armed forces and by expressing my concern and sympathy for the British citizens whose lives have been disrupted by the conflict so far. I understand the anxiety felt by families and businesses during these incredibly uncertain times. And this conflict affects us all, and we must respond to it. As I have demonstrated time and time again, I will take the necessary decisions to help families with the cost of living and protect the public finances. I'm clear-eyed about my response to the current situation. My economic approach will both be responsive to a changing world and responsible in the national interest. The economic impact of the situation in the Middle East will depend, of course, on its severity and its duration. The movements that we have already seen are likely to put upward pressure on inflation in the coming months. But I also want to confirm to the House that our financial markets are functioning, and I'm in regular touch with the Governor of the Bank of England. This afternoon, I spoke with G7 finance ministers, setting out my priorities for the international cooperation needed. First, calling for immediate de-escalation and a return to the diplomatic process. Second, we must guarantee the security of vessels passing through the Strait of Hormuz. Third, I stand ready to support a coordinated release of collective International Energy Agency oil reserves. And fourth, the UK will play its part as the global hub of maritime insurance. And I am meeting with the Chair of Lloyd's of London later today, where we will discuss how best to support the continued passage of maritime trade. I want to ensure the country that the fundamentals of Britain's economy are strong. Every step that I have taken since the election has built our national resilience, stability in the public finances, investment in infrastructure, in both defence and energy security, and reform to our economy. Last week, I updated the House about our progress in delivering that plan. We have cut inflation so that it is now at 3%, a lower base than at the outset of the Russia-Ukraine conflict. I have prioritised economic growth to drive up living standards, and I have stabilised the public finances. We have already reduced the deficit by £20 billion since last year, from 5.2% to 4.3% of GDP. We are due to reduce borrowing more over the rest of this Parliament and by more than any other G7 economy. And I have increased our financial buffers, confirmed last week by the Office for Budget Responsibility. I know that families and businesses will be concerned about the impact of this conflict on them. And so I want to set out the action we have already taken and will take to protect them. I'm prioritising energy security, investing in clean, homegrown energy. Our contracts for difference are already protecting consumers, ensuring that generators of low-carbon energy pay money back into the system when the wholesale prices are high, shielding bill payers from fossil fuel price shocks. I can confirm to the House that in the coming days we will publish the government's response to the Finkelton review of nuclear regulation to build nuclear power more quickly. Our energy system is now more secure than it was at the outset of the Russia-Ukraine conflict. In 2025, the UK imported 17% less gas than we did in 2021. And while gas generation is estimated to have set the wholesale price of electricity in Britain around 90% of the time in the early 2020s, this has now fallen by around a third. What this means is that we are less reliant on and less exposed to volatile international energy prices than we were at the outset of the Russian-Ukraine conflict, and that is welcome. I recognise the role that North Sea oil and gas will play in our economy for years to come. Last week I met with North Sea industry leaders to discuss their role in jobs, investment and growth, and in energy supply. The Energy Profits Levy currently remains in place, and the Electricity Generator Levy will also be activated if prices remain at high levels. I have set out the details of our successor regime to the Energy Profits Levy, the oil and gas price mechanism, balancing providing certainty to business with fairly taxing windfall profits from energy companies. I have also taken direct action on energy bills. Our supercharger discount on business electricity is increasing next month, cutting costs for around 500 of the most energy-intensive businesses by an additional £420 million per year. We are supporting the lowest income families by investing £15 billion in our Warm Homes plan to improve the energy efficiency of people's homes and reduce their bills. And through the Warm Homes discount, taking £150 off bills for 6 million of the lowest income households. That is a doubling of the number of people who will receive the Warm Home discount compared with those plans that the previous government had. That is in addition to the £117 price drop in the price cap that Ofgem have confirmed from next month, thanks to the wider action on bills that I took in the budget. I want to be clear to families at home that despite the movements we have seen in energy prices in the last few days, the price cap for domestic bills for April will not change, giving families immediate certainty on their bills until at least the end of June. However, I recognise that households who use heating oil face unique challenges, and so I have asked the Financial Secretary to the Treasury to lead discussions with officials and with rural and Northern Irish MPs to explore further action that we can take, and those meetings will happen on Wednesday. The current conflict only increases the importance of the action I took at the budget to reduce energy bills. A rapid de-escalation in the Middle East remains the best way to protect us from rising energy bills. But as the situation continues to unfold, my priorities will continue to be helping families with the cost of living and protecting the public finances. I'm also taking action to ensure that people pay the lowest possible price at the pump. In November, I extended the 5p per litre cut in fuel duty for a further 5 months and ensured that fuel duty will not increase in line with inflation this year. Petrol is more than 8p per litre cheaper today than it would have been under the plans that we inherited at the election. And that discount increases to 11p per litre next month once that extension takes effect. The new cheap fuel finder that I confirmed at the budget is currently being delivered, helping consumers find the cheapest price for their fuel. Almost 90% of petrol retailers have already registered for this. And last week, I instructed my officials to accelerate the integration of the cheaper fuel finder with MAP applications. This week, I am meeting with petrol forecourt operators, and I will not hesitate to call out retailers who fail to provide data to the fuel finder. I am clear that the best way to keep prices at the pump low is rapid de-escalation, and I will continue to monitor prices as the situation develops. I have also asked the Competition and Markets Authority to be vigilant across prices, including essentials like road fuel and heating oil. Let me be absolutely clear. I will not tolerate any company exploiting the current crisis to make excess profits at consumers' expense. I am proud to be the Chancellor that is delivering the biggest uplift in defence spending since the end of the Cold War. And I am committed to giving our military the resource that they need. That is why I can confirm today that I approved access for the Ministry of Defence to the Special Reserve to deploy additional capabilities in the Middle East, meaning that no net additional costs of these operations will be funded by the MOD, but instead will be funded by the Treasury. Mr. Speaker, Madam Deputy Speaker, we don't yet know how long the conflict will last or what further action will be required. But it is my duty to be responsive in an uncertain world and responsible in the national interest, to protect the public finances and help families with the cost of living. That is what the Prime Minister is doing. That is what I will continue to do. And I commend this statement to the House.
Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And can I thank the Chancellor for advanced sight of her statement and add our firm support for our armed forces. Madam Deputy Speaker, as the Chancellor has made clear, these are very serious and concerning times, and the developments in the Middle East are already having profound consequences for our economy. Oil prices have surged above $100 a barrel for the first time since the 2022 energy crisis. That alone is enough to have huge knock-on effects for households and businesses. Families filling up their car will already have noticed petrol prices increasing. Fixed-price energy tariffs have either been increased or pulled from the market. So we are already seeing British households worse off as a result of this conflict. I'm grateful to the Chancellor for updating the House on the meetings with other G7 finance ministers, and I welcome her commitment to support action to ease pressure on global supply by using strategic oil reserves. That, however, will only go so far. As the Chancellor said, the longer this conflict continues, the more likely it is that we will see a sustained period of higher prices. Of course, that in turn will also have implications for interest rates and for our cost of borrowing. The longer this lasts, the more likely it is that higher inflationary expectations become anchored. If that happens, monetary policy will need to adjust accordingly, which may mean higher mortgages for homeowners who have only just begun to see some relief. And of course, gilt markets have already been responding to these events, which could mean that forecasts we were given just last week from the OBR end up looking very, very different. We must continue to monitor developments closely. And Madam Deputy Speaker, where we on this side of the House clearly differ with the Right Honourable Lady is in her approach to the economy in the run-up to this crisis. Her gross mismanagement has left us far more vulnerable than would otherwise have been the case. Inflation, to which she refers, was bang on target when we left office. But thanks to the Right Honourable Lady's choices, it rose back up to almost 4% last year, the highest in the G7. And inflation remains elevated. That is far from ideal, given the threat of a significant further spike in energy prices. And of course, extraordinarily, the Chancellor has just now reconfirmed that the government will press ahead with a rise in fuel duty later this year. And borrowing is running higher than was forecast when the government took office. We are spending well over $100 billion a year on debt interest alone. That leaves us far more vulnerable to rising borrowing costs. And the government, of course, is continuing to impose ruinously high taxes on our oil and gas sector and choosing to rely on imports instead of maximising our own domestic energy supply. That is proving to be an incredibly short-sighted approach. But as the Right Honourable Lady has just told us, there will be no change in direction. That is the wrong choice. And more broadly, of course, business confidence has hit record lows and unemployment has risen back to pandemic levels. So our economy is weaker as a direct result of this Chancellor. Now, last week, Madam Deputy Speaker, at the spring statement, the Right Honourable Lady had an opportunity to change course. But instead, we got no action at all. Just breathtaking self-congratulation and denial. She had a vital opportunity to come to this House with a plan to get the economy growing. But she did not do that. Not least because this week government have caved into their own backbenchers who prefer higher welfare spending over fixing our economy. So today, let me reiterate our offer to support the government if, even at this late stage, and particularly given the gravity of the current global outlook, they do the right thing, show some backbone, and come forward with a proper plan to cut welfare spending and strengthen our economy so we can properly support hard-working families through this difficult time. This is the very least that the British people deserve. Finally, Mr. Speaker, could I ask the Right Honourable Lady, will she urgently reconsider her decision to implement the first increase in fuel duty in 15 years? Likewise, to urgently reconsider her decision to continue with the crippling taxes being imposed on North Sea oil and gas producers. On the Fingleton review on nuclear, can she clarify if the government is accepting all those recommendations, as ministers previously committed to do? Can she give further details on what additional economic action is under consideration internationally if the conflict continues? What measures is the government considering to support households in the event of a sustained period of higher prices, and what action is being considered as part of the Financial Secretary's work to support those reliant on heating oil? Are the government tracking the Iranian regime's illegal funding sources to ensure UK financial systems are not facilitating funds that are being used to support repression? And can she confirm that there is sufficient resource available in the Special Reserve so that our brave servicemen and women have the support they deserve?
Chancellor of the Exchequer.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I thank the Right Honourable Member for his questions. The Government believes that the best way that we can protect families and businesses from this conflict is through de-escalation. And we heard nothing in the Shadow Chancellor's response about what the opposition's view is on de-escalation. We believe that it's important that we get back to the negotiating table and don't escalate this conflict. I'm not that sure that that is the view of the opposition party. But we also know that commitment to greater energy security can help guard against shocks. And after inaction and delay from the Conservatives when they were in government for 14 years, this Labour government is committed to investing and building new nuclear, and that's why we're backing Sizewell C, and also small modular reactors, both funded at the spending review, neither funded by the previous government, because this government is backing Britain's energy security. This Labour government is backing the industry of the future, such as carbon capture and storage, funded at the spending review, not funded by the party opposite, because we back Britain's energy security. And through the National Wealth Fund, we are investing in floating offshore wind and in our docks, funded in the spending review, not funded by the party opposite, because we back Britain's energy security. Yeah. In 14 years, the Tories did nothing. So they failed when we needed new nuclear. They stood by and allowed the loss of gas storage facilities at Rough. They failed to fix the broken planning system to enable us to build renewables. And they had an effective moratorium on onshore wind, which is the cheapest form of energy. We are taking a different approach in the interest of our economy and energy security. On energy bills, I would urge the Right Honourable Gentleman not to scaremonger. The £150 cut to energy bills that I announced in the budget will continue, as confirmed by Ofgem. We removed the failed eco scheme and we removed a number of levies off of bills. On heating oil, those conversations will happen this week, and we are working closely with MPs, with colleagues in Northern Ireland to make sure that things are working well. But the Minister at Desnes met with the heating oil sector on Friday and spoke this morning to the Competition and Markets Authority. There is not currently a problem with supply, but where members have individual issues around supply, they should make sure they get in contact with Desnes. On fuel duty would have risen by 8p compared to if I had have used the plans that I inherited. And we've had two budgets, both of which all of the parties opposite voted against, which extended that freeze in fuel duty. So it's a little bit rich now to hear the opposition saying that they want to reduce fuel duty when they vote against budgets that froze it. And on the energy profits levy, I think the Right Honourable Gentleman has a short memory because, of course, he was in the cabinet that introduced the energy profits levy. And they introduced it for a reason, because of the windfall profits that were being made by the energy companies and the need to help consumers with bills, which is exactly what we have done. On the public finances, again, I'm not sure if the Right Honourable Gentleman listened either to my statement last week or my statement today. The deficit has reduced from 5.3% to 4.2% of GDP. It's the first time in 6 years that the budget deficit has been less than 5% of GDP. And in fact, in the 14 years that the Conservatives were in office, borrowing was higher than the G7 average. It is now lower than the G7 average, and it's coming down in every year of this Parliament. And on inflation, I'm not going to take any lessons from the party that took inflation to more than 11%. RIPS under policy supported by the party opposite. And on welfare, I've got to say, for the former Work and Pension Secretary to say that we should be spending less on welfare, well, it would have been nice if it had done something about it when he was in charge. We are reforming the welfare system that they broke. And on Finkleton, we commissioned the Finkleton review because we are determined to build nuclear power, unlike the party opposite. On oil reserves, we have 90 days' worth of reserves of oil imports, and as confirmed by the G7 today, we will be making further announcements of that. On gas reserves, it was the party opposite that closed the storage facilities at Rough, and National Gas have confirmed today that our gas reserves are at a comparable level to last year and the year before that, and that the numbers being reported are utterly misleading because gas comes from a number of sources. It comes from the interconnectors, it comes from liquid natural gas, and it comes from our storage facilities. So again, I would really rather that the party opposite didn't scaremonger when people want certainty. On money laundering, of course, we have the very strictest rules around money laundering, and on the special reserve for defence, of course, we will make sure that the Ministry of Defence has all the money it needs for providing the support for our armed forces.
Video outro, 250 words. Today's Commons exchange laid bare the sharp political divide over how Britain should respond to growing economic uncertainty caused by the conflict in the Middle East. Rachel Reeves told MPs that the government was preparing for potential economic shocks by working with international partners, protecting public finances, strengthening energy security, and supporting households if prices continue to rise. She argued that Britain is now better prepared than during previous global energy crises, and stressed that de-escalation remains the best way to protect families from higher living costs. Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride strongly challenged that assessment. He argued that Britain entered this crisis in a weaker economic position than necessary, pointing to inflation, borrowing, fuel duty and North Sea energy policy. He urged the Chancellor to rethink key economic decisions and adopt measures that he believes would improve resilience if global instability continues. For millions of families across the UK, these debates are about much more than political point scoring. They are about the price of filling the car, paying the energy bill, keeping businesses open and making sure household budgets can withstand another period of uncertainty. Every rise in global energy prices can have real consequences for working families, pensioners and small businesses. As events overseas continue to develop, Parliament will remain under pressure to reassure the country that Britain's economy is prepared for whatever comes next. What do you think? Did Mel Stride make a convincing case that the government should change course, or did Rachel Reeves provide the reassurance families needed? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoy our coverage of Commons debates and the biggest moments in British politics, please like this video, subscribe to Britain Daily, and turn on notifications so you never miss the latest debates, PMQs, and breaking political news from Westminster.